All right, team, welcome back. I was going to do this video in my studio, my dry fire studio. It just doesn't allow for a lot of the movement stuff that I wanted to show you today. So we're doing it outside. Weather's still pretty decent, so I figured we'd take advantage of it. It's a little windy, but I think you'll get the point here. I have my my port that I made. You should have seen that video on how to make a port with some PVC pipe. I also have my stand that I made over there on that side, whatever that is for you. And then I have the short, like a light stand that I put on a little table there, just so I could have two targets for today. You obviously don't need to have all that extra stuff. If you created a port for yourself and you have two things on a wall, that's much easier. You can practice with two things, three things, four things, and any kind of array in the back behind a port. Competition will often have ports or walls or barriers or things you have to shoot around or shoot through or whatever. I wanted to get you some information on how to, best practice is how to shoot through a wall or a port like this, where there's a hole in a wall and you can't shoot obviously through the wall. There's only a little area where you can shoot through. I have seen some horrendous ways to shoot this, so I'm going to tell you my best practices, my best way that I found to work this stuff out. Oftentimes at a port is where people will start losing dots if they have dots, because they bend over to kind of see what they're doing, right? Instead of keeping their balance correct. Or they'll like run into the port really aggressively and stick their arms all the way through the port. It looks something like this. Here's the port, right? They'll run in there and they'll just like do this, where they kind of stay upright, but then they stick their head forward, so they start losing the dot. And or they'll stay upright and they'll bend correctly. Maybe they'll bend their knees correctly, but then they stick all the way through the port with their hands. And the vast majority of the time that is actually unnecessary, and it'll probably slow you down because you're overdoing whatever it is. So not necessarily what we want. You don't want to have to like bend over with just your head. You'll want to use your legs to lower your center of gravity so that you can shoot through a port. But because you're shooting through a port doesn't mean that you actually have to stick your gun through the port. Because oftentimes you stick your gun and your arms all the way in there, you have limited mobility, and then you have to pull back out of that port to go to the next position. So most of the times, not going all the way to the port is the ticket. I have shot through ports from far distances. If I can get low enough with my stance, even if I'm 6 feet back from the port, 10 feet back from the port, and the target is visible, I'll take it from there. On the other hand, if the port is full of an array, then we'll get a little bit closer. And sometimes if it's the last position, I may even go all the way inside the port if it's dictated. But for the most part, for the vast majority of the time, do not go all the way inside the port. Definitely don't duck your head under. Rather widen your stance and lower your stance so that you can do whatever it is that you need to do while still maintaining the triangle, right? The balance of your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, right? All that stuff is still there. And whatever you need to do, whether you're shooting around barriers or through ports, your triangle up here is uniform so that you can continue shooting. The recoil management is the same whether it's doing like this, or if you turn the entire triangle, it's like this. It looks the same under your vision and behaves pretty similarly to your shoulders and your elbows, all right? So, well, that being said, how do we do that, right? I told you things not to do.